Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, if you're watching this right now, chances are you've felt that creeping anxiety that comes with buying a new phone in 2026. You know the feeling, right? You're standing at this digital crossroads, staring down the two massive tech giants of our time, Apple and Google. It's a huge financial investment, and honestly, the fear of choosing the wrong ecosystem is incredibly real. But don't worry, because today we are going to break down the facts, the hard data, and the actual real-world experiences to help you make the absolute perfect choice for your digital life.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our tale of the tape for today's head-to-head battle. First, we'll look at the 2026 smartphone war in general. Second, the clash of the cameras. Third, the AI intelligence race. Fourth, the true cost and overall value. And finally, the final verdict.
All right, Section 1, the 2026 smartphone war, and how we're breaking down the ecosystem walls.
You know those massive, unscalable walls that used to surround these ecosystems? Well, they are finally starting to crumble. For years, the absolute biggest hurdle to switching was just the sheer technical nightmare of moving your data. But in 2026, tools like Apple's move to iOS and Google's transfer to Android have effectively killed brand lock-in. I mean, you can port your entire digital life across enemy lines in literally a matter of minutes. Plus, with the massive adoption of RCS messaging, high-quality videos and read receipts now flow totally seamlessly between iPhones and Androids. Yet, and here's the crazy part, despite all this technical harmony, that psychological green bubble stigma, it stubbornly persists, especially in places like the US. It's fascinating. The technology is completely open, but the cultural signaling of being in the right chat bubble is still driving major buying decisions.
But underneath all that messaging drama, the hardware and software philosophies remain vastly different. Apple's iOS 26 is fully embracing spatial design, all powered by their incredibly fast A19 chip. It's offering this curated simplicity, a beautifully polished, somewhat rigid liquid glass interface that prioritizes a flawless, out-of-the-box experience. On the flip side, you have Android 16, running on cutting-edge hardware like the world's first 2-nanometer chips, and it is all about adaptive freedom. It gives you complete customization. You can tweak every widget, every icon, every gesture to your exact liking. So it really boils down to curated perfection versus ultimate control.
Moving on to Section 2, the clash of the cameras, megapixels versus processing.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide. Let's face it, your phone is primarily your camera these days, but hardware specs on a spec sheet do not tell the whole story. Samsung comes out swinging with a jaw-dropping 200-megapixel main sensor and dual telephoto lenses for insane zoom reach, but Apple counters, not with raw megapixel count, but with a highly focused 48-megapixel dual fusion setup and industry-leading 4K video at 120 frames per second. It's a classic heavyweight battle, Samsung's incredible hardware versatility taking on Apple's unmatched computational processing and cinematic video fluidity.
But the truly beautiful thing about 2026 is that it's no longer just a two-horse race. The best camera? Well, it depends entirely on what you actually shoot. The iPhone is still the undisputed king of point-and-shoot reliability. It gives you the most natural skin tones and lifelike video hands down. But in the Android ecosystem, you get specialized tools. Samsung is your absolute go-to for vibrant landscapes or zooming way in on a concert stage. The OnePlus 15 has basically cornered the market on freezing fast-moving action shots, and Google's Pixel 10 Pro XL, it offers these wild AI editing capabilities that let you magically reframe and fix photos long after you've taken them. So there's no objective best here, just what's best for your specific creative needs.
Let's pivot to Section 3, the AI intelligence race, Apple Intelligence versus Galaxy AI.
Smartphones are no longer just communication devices. They are literally our proactive personal assistants now. Both platforms have integrated AI deeply into their DNA, but with totally different priorities. Apple Intelligence focuses heavily on privacy and on-device processing. Things like live translation or the cleanup photo tool, they're woven invisibly into the system, keeping your data locked down tight. It feels very personal. Google's Gemini, however, leans hard into raw generative power. Using models like Gemini Nano and Pro, Android devices offer features like Circle to Search and act more like an incredibly capable executive secretary, summarizing massive documents, generating original content, and executing complex tasks all across the web. To put it simply, Apple's AI is your private, secure assistant. Google's is your heavy-hitting research team.
Now, what's really interesting is how these broad software philosophies translate to the daily human experience. Check out this viral quote from a Reddit user, a 15-year Android veteran who just recently switched over to iOS. They said, "I fight the keyboard instead of using it. Liquid glass is design over function."
I think that perfectly highlights the real-world friction that happens when you move from a system of total control to a system of rigid curation. Little things like trying to place a cursor inside a word or managing a unified notification history can feel incredibly restrictive on an iPhone if you're used to Android's completely open rulebook. And that builds a pretty clear picture of the daily friction points for users. For iOS, users absolutely love the mature fluidity, the offline capabilities of Apple Wallet, and the superior tactile haptic feedback. But they often struggle with all-or-nothing notification settings and the really annoying lack of a universal back gesture. Android users, on the other hand, just revel in total notification control, super intuitive gestures, and the freedom to install any app they want from anywhere. The trade-off? Well, you sometimes have to deal with fragmented features across different hardware brands and some inconsistent app optimization. It's a constant balancing act between perfect optimization and total freedom.
Which brings us to Section 4, True Cost and Overall Value. Let's look at the long-term investment.
So, the crucial point here is longevity. We can debate tech specs and camera lenses all day, but the absolute most critical deciding factor for almost every buyer out there is the long-term financial investment. Historically, Apple dominated software longevity. But in 2026, major Android players like Google and Samsung have really stepped up, officially guaranteeing 7 full years of operating system updates. This is a massive paradigm shift. It completely levels the playing field. Buying an Android or an iPhone today means you are guaranteed a secure, updated device well into the 2030s.
But hold on, because while they might both last for 7 years, they definitely do not hold their financial weight the same way. The data regarding a phone's resale value after just 2 years is frankly staggering. On average, an iPhone retains about 65% of its original value. A comparable Android flagship, it plummets to roughly 35%. This right here is the hidden cost of the smartphone war. Android phones depreciate like cars driving off a dealer's lot, while iPhones act much more like retaining assets on the secondary market.
Which leads us to this super vital concept, total cost of ownership. Basically, it's the initial purchase price plus operational costs minus whatever you can sell it for at the end. When you calculate that, the math flips everything on its head. A premium $1,000 iPhone used for 6 years actually costs you the exact same amount annually as a cheaper $500 Android phone that depreciates faster and requires you to replace it every 3 years. So, the cheaper upfront cost of Android is fantastic if you're on a strict budget today for sure, but Apple's resale value often makes it the much smarter financial play over the span of a decade.
And finally, Section 5, the final verdict. Are you choosing the garden or the bridge?
We've covered a ton of ground today: the tech, the cameras, the AI, and the money. After analyzing all of this data, it's abundantly clear that there is no universal best phone. It really comes down to a fundamental choice between two distinct digital lifestyles. Are you looking for the walled garden? Apple offers seamless, almost magical integration if you use a Mac, an Apple Watch, and AirPods, coupled with that high asset retention we talked about. It's safe, it's curated, and it's beautiful. Or do you want the bridge builder? Android in 2026 offers phenomenal integration with Windows 12 PCs, universal accessory freedom for literally any brand of headphones or smartwatch, and hardware choices ranging from budget-friendly bricks to cutting-edge foldables. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Which digital ecosystem are you choosing to build your life inside? Do you crave the curated, effortless simplicity of Apple's walled garden or the boundless customizable freedom of Android's open bridges? Think about how you actually use your technology every single day, because ultimately, the choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you make your next big tech decision with total confidence.